Happy Friday. It's Peter McLaughlin, Blue Sky Hypnosis. This is Friday Live at 5. Today we're going to be talking about reversing self-sabotage when it comes to weight loss and how you can use hypnosis and other techniques to finally get past the whole self-sabotage thing, or what we call self-sabotage. Before I start, I just want to do my normal disclaimers. I am not an MD, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. I'm a hypnotherapist and a life coach. I've got 16 years of experience doing that work one-on-one with my clients. A lot of that work was done helping people, still continues to be done one-on-one, helping people to lose weight. It's not the only thing I do, but it's a big issue, obviously. It seems to be a much larger problem than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and there are all kinds of reasons for that. If you have questions, please be sure to put the questions in the comments section. It's what really makes this dynamic and interesting. If you have comments, make those comments too. If you have suggestions for future lives, please feel free to do that. But the bottom line is, let's make this, as you always do, a dialogue with your questions, comments, and so forth, so we can get a really good back and forth going. So without further ado, I guess what we'll start with is the first question that I sort of posed in the email that I sent out. If you're not on the email list, consider getting on the email list. It's in the body of this video, and this video will be preserved after the live is over. So if you want to send it to somebody else, you can certainly do that. Why do people self-sabotage when it comes to weight loss? Well, the first thing that I want to do is define what I believe that phrase means, self-sabotage. So it implies that there is a saboteur, someone who is trying to destroy the factory. You know, it came actually from French workers who wore wooden shoes to work, and a shoe in French is called sabot. And so somebody who took off their wooden shoe and threw it into the gears of the machine to break the machine was called a saboteur. And if you take that definition and you apply it to yourself and say, why am I sabotaging my life? On the surface, that makes perfect sense that you would use that phrase, because you want to lose weight and you have really good reasons for wanting to lose weight, and you're doing really well along that process, and then all of a sudden you find yourself binge eating or breaking the diet in some way, or doing something that completely reverses and maybe makes it even worse, all of this progress that you've gained over a period of time. So it feels like one part of you is a saboteur and is fighting against this other part of you, and it involves struggle and anger and tears and all of these other things. Well, what I'd like to suggest to you today is that the part of you that you have been calling the saboteur is actually not a saboteur. It's not trying to ruin your life. The role of your subconscious mind is to protect you, and it thinks that by losing weight, strangely enough, but by losing weight, that somehow you're going to be worse off, or you're going to be in danger. So what we want to do is we want to get that deeper part of your mind that doesn't believe it's safe for you to lose weight. We want to, in essence, re-educate that part of you so that it's not working at cross purposes with you. But to think that it's fighting you sets up an internal war, and nobody wins in a war. What we really want, again, is we want that part of you to be in line with your greater desires. So just in no particular order, the things that I wrote down in terms of why people self-sabotage, the deeper reasons why they self-sabotage, number one, I would put as protection. There's something that the subconscious mind believes is unsafe by you losing weight, or by you going beyond a certain threshold. Now, one of the common reasons, sadly, is that if there was any kind of, say, sexual abuse in the past, the subconscious could take on the belief that if you were to lose weight, and let's say the implication of that is a greater degree of attractiveness, that you would go down the same road again. So in that case, what we would want to be able to do is heal that old trauma. I'm sure it's, you know, if there are people sadly out there that are dealing with that it's causing other problems too. And by healing that old trauma, we're essentially telling the subconscious mind that is no longer a threat. You are now safe to lose the weight. And if that was the reason, then it should be easier to lose the weight without dealing with what heretofore has been called self-sabotage. The protection could be, as I mentioned, on a physical level. It could also be on an emotional level. So one of the things about us as humans that's really important is that we are herd animals. We are more, as I like to say, we're more like dogs than we are like cats. You know, we're more like zebras, that if there is a danger or we become frightened, safety for us is found in the herd, in the group. And that to be alone out by yourself is considered to be dangerous. Well, if you think about this, about what the population of the United States, for example, that is obese or overweight, it's well over 2/3. That it's likely that your friend group, they might be heavy people. Your family group might be heavy people. And so to the subconscious mind, by losing weight, you would be the tall poppy. Now all of a sudden you would stand out. And that can be a place that really feels vulnerable for people. I mean, consciously, you know, we all want to do important work. We want to make money. We want to stand out. We want to be outstanding. And yet to the subconscious mind, that could actually be very threatening. So that's another thing, another reason why a person might do what we call self-sabotage. There's also distraction. So if you're living a life where you're not in a good relationship, or you want to be in a relationship and you're not, or you have physical pain, or you've got some kind of emotional pain, it could be anxiety, it could be different forms of stress, it could be boredom, it could be all sorts of things, then it may be that the subconscious mind, in order to protect you from those feelings, drives you towards binge eating, for example, and that while you're binge eating, you're distracting yourself from something else in your life that you don't want to be dealing with. These are all possible reasons why self-sabotage could be an issue for you. All right, I'm just going to actually put up a text of what one of the regulars to our Friday Live had emailed me ahead of time, and she said, you know, I want you to address this during the live if you have the time. And so I put it into a little form, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it now. Here it is. So what she said is, I've put on 25 pounds since I had to move and take care of my mom's house and dog while she was in a nursing facility. Late night cravings are ice cream, chips, sugar pizza, but I am also gluten intolerant and dairy upsets my gut. I resist my cravings, 90% of the time, but sometimes I can't. This is really self-sabotage, not just putting on weight, but being aware of the bad reactions to what amounts to immediate toxicity. Okay, so I don't know her backstory. We have not worked one-on-one as you know, in a client relationship. I pretty much just know what you know, what she wrote here. So the things that I'm going to say as possibilities, as suppositions, may not actually be true, but I'm going to take a crack at it anyway. You know, taking care of a close family relative is not easy under the best of circumstances. And I don't know whether she is getting help, whether she has siblings who are helping her, or if she's doing it herself, or if the burden of this is falling entirely on her. I don't really know. But certainly having, as I said, you know, your mom go into a nursing facility, especially in these days, whereby it seems that the residents of those facilities and their family members have far fewer rights than they had, you know, 2 years ago, would have to be super, super stressful. And it's, excuse me, it's very likely, and I'm just kind of getting over COVID here, so I hope you'll forgive me. I still have a tickle in my chest. It's very likely that this person who wrote this, the caretaker, is still having all the normal stresses and strains of her life, and now she has this added on top. And it may be that in order to escape temporarily, back to that distraction model, to escape temporarily from these feelings of being overburdened, maybe of her mom declining, maybe of excuse me, of being the only one, that she is from time to time resorting to food the way other people might resort to alcohol or drugs or shopping or gambling or binge watching on the internet or what have you, that it is almost like an addiction. And my belief is that that kind of an addiction is driven by pain, and it's by temporarily relieving or through distraction of that kind of pain that could be driving this kind of thing. Could there be other things going on for her? Absolutely, 100%. But it's not what we think it is. It's not this conscious, rational process whereby we're always walking through life and making decisions based on our conscious, logical, rational side, like Spock in Star Trek. We are emotional creatures that are driven by the emotions. And I think when there's an unconscious behavior like this, any kind of an addictive behavior, we have to ask ourselves the question first, what is the underlying pain? And am I trying to numb, narcotize, distract myself from that underlying pain? And what can I do to relieve the pain? Either by eliminating the pain or reducing the pain, and what can I do when it's rising up? What are the other things that I can do when it's rising up that is not food, that is not alcohol, that is not drugs, that is not gambling? What can I do to keep those feelings coming back down if there's no other way for me to deal with this? In other words, if I don't have siblings that can help me, if I don't have the ability to go see a psychotherapist to help me with these feelings, if I can't get more sleep, if I can't get more rest, what can I do, even if it takes 20 minutes, to sort of detox from all of these feelings so that I don't have to turn to something else? And I think understanding is a huge piece of this. Again, asking yourself the question, what is the underlying pain that's driving this behavior, so that you're not fighting with yourself. A house divided against itself cannot stand. We don't want you fighting yourself, thinking that you're, purposely, foolishly undermining or sabotaging yourself. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Gertrude Hill, good to see you. Raquel Figueroa, glad you're here. Sarah W. Jill Turner, glad to see you. Joyce Shaw. Musette, glad you're here, Musette. Kittens in the Moon, I just love that name. Brittany Sturgill, who says, I feel like I am protecting myself. Yeah, so one of the solutions there, and I'm sort of jumping all around, is to treat your subconscious mind like a 4-year-old version of you, and think of you holding her hand and walking around with her, and she follows you everywhere you go. Excuse me, and she believes everything that you think, everything that you say, 150%. So being able to reassure her that she is safe, that because she's safe, she doesn't need protecting. And this is where self-hypnosis, auto-suggestion can come in, where some of my tracks can come in. I have a track called You Are Safe, or I Am Safe to Lose Weight. So focusing on that concept of safety, reassuring yourself, in other words, reassuring the 4-year-old girl who is your subconscious mind, that you are safe to lose weight. It's safe to be you. It's safe to go out of the house. It's safe to drive your car. It's safe to be in a relationship. And continue repeating this over and over and over again, especially when you're feeling like things are getting out of control. This can help enormously. I'm not saying that that's a panacea, although for some people that can do it. That's enough. But I hear what you're saying. Here is Michelle Mybell. Hello to you too. And Crone, hi Peter and everyone, put on the alarm for this topic. Very cool. Make sure you ask questions if you have them. Sarah W., could holding on to excess weight also be a sign from our souls that there's an important message we are ignoring? Yeah, I think so, for sure. And remember I said just a little while ago that when there's a sort of addictive or uncontrollable behavior going on, I think an important question to ask is, what is the underlying pain that's driving this behavior? And I think a lot of times we don't really know exactly. We know maybe that we're stressed out. We might know we're in a difficult relationship. We might know that, there's more on our shoulders than we want, but we also may have the programming, excuse me, that tells us, no, you can deal with this. You just have to suck it up and take care of this, and you should be able to put other people before you all the time, and you should be able to take on this extra burden, blah, 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 blah. And therefore you might be discounting that underlying message. Or it may be that there's some trauma that happened in the distant past, and you think, well, geez, it's been 10 years, or it's been 30 years, or it's been 40 years. You should be over that by now. Well, You may not be, because until and unless a trauma is healed in the subconscious mind, it tends to still live there. It tends to still be alive. So yeah, I totally agree with you that it can be a message from your soul of wake up, it's time to pay attention. And I think that that's true for any kind of pain, any kind of discomfort, that it's like somebody ringing the doorbell. And if you don't come to the front door, they might start pounding on the door. And if you don't do that, don't answer, then it could get even more dramatic, what is required to get your attention. So yeah, I totally agree with you. All right. Here is Heather Marney. Hello, Heather. And Dolores. Hello to Dolores. Okay. So the other thing that I want to come back to is the role of the subconscious mind in weight loss. We want to make the subconscious mind your partner. We don't want you fighting with the subconscious mind. It's kind of like riding a horse. Now, I've ridden a horse, multiple times in my life. I can't say that I'm a phenomenal rider, but I know what it's like. I know how to make the horse go, how to turn left, how to turn right, how to stop. All right, that's kind of it, but enough to understand it a little bit. And what I understand from people who really understand horseback riding is that you want to work with the horse. You don't want to work against the horse. So the more that the rider understands the psychology of the horse, the more the rider understands their own psychology is influencing the horse, the better that relationship can become. Because my God, you're dealing with an animal that weighs, I can't remember exactly what they weigh, but I want to say something like 1,200 pounds. And they're enormously powerful. And trying to force them to do what you want them to do, even if they're afraid, is going to end in disaster. So think of your subconscious mind as a 1,200-pound horse. And your job is to understand the psychology of your subconscious mind and get the subconscious mind, the horse, to align with what you want, so you're both riding in the same direction and you're not fighting that horse. You're not yanking it on its bridle, trying to get it to go where you want it to go, but rather it trusts you. You understand it. It's leading you. You're leading the horse, right? But you're not forcing it to do what it doesn't want to do. You're working together. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Here's Carolyn from New Zealand. Wow. Thanks for joining. Here's Learn to Love Yourself Coaching with Lisa. Good evening. Self-sabotage is my biggest blockage. I still can't seem to heal. I've tried a lot, but still did not get to the root. In PLR, past life regression sessions, I tune out and wake up when the track is over. Okay, so it could be that the tuning out that you're talking about is actually a form of that subconscious protection that I was talking about. So my advice would be use a pendulum. Determine with the pendulum that will give you yes, no, and maybe answers if the root cause of what you're discussing is something that was actually created in a past lifetime. If it was, then ask if your tuning out is a subconscious defense mechanism to protect you from a trauma in a past lifetime. If the answer to that is yes, then what you want to be able to do is work with your subconscious mind. And one of the quickest ways of doing this, in fact, of getting past that block, is to say to your subconscious mind, I hereby suspend all of my fear for the next 60 minutes. Say that 3 times, then do the past life regression, and see if that gets you through. And if you want to, give more information on how this is affecting your life, please feel free to do, and we can dive into that deeper if you feel comfortable with that. All right, here's Heather Marney. Heather says, yes, I've been dealing with codependency all my life. And as I'm older now, I find I'm very aware of it. And finding that this last relationship, I'm realizing that I have such a pattern when I get into. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Heather, is that patterns, I think, are really important to recognize. It's so easy for us in this culture, especially with relationships, to blame the other party and think, well, if I just had a different, if I were in a relationship with a different person, then everything would be fine. And kind of negating our role in maybe if it's a romantic relationship, choosing that relationship, or any relationship, what our role is in kind of fostering a situation consciously or perhaps unconsciously that we don't want. And when you see certain patterns, you realize, wait a minute, this has been around for a long time. And then the next question is, this is the question I always ask when I'm working with my clients, is when was that pattern created? What created that pattern? In general, a negative pattern is going to be something that was created by a trauma. And as was mentioned before by Learn to Love Yourself coaching, that origin point of that trauma being created could have been created in a past lifetime. You may have been going through 4 or 5 different lifetimes, having the same pattern unfold over and over and over again. And when that's the case, we want to get, to the root, to the very first instance of that, so we can understand what created that pattern in the first place. And then we want to heal it at its root, so that you don't have that old trauma that's pulling you inexorably always back to the same pattern that then gets repeated. Okay. Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle says, oops, sorry about that. Michelle says, I've been successfully sober from drugs and alcohol for 14 years. Working on my inner issues regarding weight sounds like so much more work. How could I approach this multi-tiered issue? Okay, awesome question. So when I'm working with somebody who wants to lose weight, the first question I ask, which really I think probably sounds like a stupid question, is why? Why for you in particular, Michelle, do you in particular want to lose weight? And I think it sounds like a stupid question because it seems like everybody wants to lose weight. Or I think people just assume, oh, well, I'm going to look beautiful, or I'm going to look handsome, or I'm going to look sexy when I lose weight, or I'm going to feel better about myself, or I'm going to be healthier. Well, those are already a variety of different reasons, and different people could have different reasons for that. And I think it's really important to zero in on exactly why you want to lose the weight. For a person who says, because they will feel better about themselves, my next question is, why? Why would you feel better about yourself because you lost weight? Would it be because you accomplished a difficult goal? Would it be because you like the way you look in the mirror? Would it be because you just feel lighter on the inside? What is it? And I think when you can get really clear on that goal, and then you can understand, all right, do I need to lose weight in order to feel better about myself? Am I just using losing weight as this mythical time at which I will be able to have self-esteem? This mythical time at which I will be able to have self-confidence or self-worth? And then my point is, why not right now, if that's what it is? Why can't you feel good about yourself right now? Because maybe that's the question we need to answer in the case of this hypothetical example. Because there are plenty of people who are overweight, who feel good about themselves, who have high self-esteem, who have high self-worth, high self-value. And what makes you think that if you lose weight and you feel really good about yourself for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months, that you're not just going to slide right back to whatever that was before, that old pattern? So figuring out the reason, I think, is really important, because that can lead us to a deeper wound that has to get healed before the weight is ever really going to come off permanently. The second thing is back to that ultimate goal, that ultimate reason, is to make that more powerful than anything else. It's to understand, and again, you can use a pendulum to start winnowing down what for you is absolutely going on behind the weight loss. Because if you don't, it's just going to become a calories in, calories out thing. What food am I eating? Excuse me, how many calories are in that? How much exercise am I doing? And is that going to be sustainable over a long period of time? Well, the answer for most people is no, it's not. But if you find the deeper reasons and you resolve those deeper reasons and you keep coming back to them and you say, that's what's driving all of this, I think that's where you can have long-term success. And making the ultimate goal for losing the weight more powerful than say, its opposite, than the fear of losing the weight, than laziness. It's aligning the rest of your life. I mean, I make this analogy probably too many times, but if everything isn't working in a car, the car is going to have problems because all of those parts, all of those components have to be aligned with the mission for that car driving straight and true down the road. And I think it's similar for us, that how long can you work at a job that you hate before that's going to affect other aspects of your life? How long can you be in an unfulfilling relationship before the same thing happens? How long can you eat crappy food before it catches up with you? How long can you not get enough sleep? Or how long can you take toxins into your body without that catching up with you too? I really believe that this is absolutely multifaceted. And I think it's really important to change something about your mind, right? That your mind is your software. It's governing your behavior. And so, back to your point about how can I get control of this multifaceted issue, my first suggestion would be use a pendulum. Find out what is at the root of this difficulty, with losing weight. Is this an old trauma from a past life, from earlier in your present life? Is it some kind of a pattern that's been going on? Does it have to do with your relationships? Does it have to do with your job and your finances? And get to those deeper reasons. Now you'll have much greater clarity on how to deal with us. If it's a self-love or a self-worth thing, then we want to have you go after that immediately, not put it off until you lose a certain amount of weight, thinking that at that point magically you're going to start loving yourself. There are plenty of skinny, beautiful people who don't love themselves. That is not a guaranteed path towards having self-worth and self-esteem. So hopefully that rambling answer made some sense. If it didn't, please flesh that out a little bit in the comments section, and I'll try to come at this from a different angle. But thanks for asking the question. And Michelle, the other thing too is what was driving the drug and alcohol addiction? That's another big question. And was that ever resolved? Or was there a transference? In other words, did you stop drinking alcohol and stop taking drugs and just turn towards food, right? That's the most common thing, I think, that can happen. We would want to know what was driving that kind of behavior. And the next thing, and I'm glad that you asked this question because it's kind of led me, not surreptitiously, it's led me in a serpentine fashion to this point, which is also a spiritual possibility, and that is when a person has a drug or alcohol addiction, they can have spiritual entities attached to them. Those spiritual entities may not want you to lose weight because if you do, some other things may happen in your life and they may lose, in quotation marks, their home. So with that pendulum, check into whether you have any spiritual entities attached to you. Because what's going on at this deeper level could be a bit corrupted by the influence of these spiritual entities. Hey, you could have had a spiritual entity that, was obese in their lifetime, and they want to feel what it's like to have all that weight again because it made them feel big and important. Maybe you have a spiritual entity that starved in their lifetime and they never want to starve again. Maybe you have a spiritual entity that was a gastronome and loved food, and through you they're re-experiencing kind of overeating, over drinking, whatever. I know it's complicated, but getting to that root cause is ultimately, or root causes, is ultimately the best method in my opinion. Excuse me, folks. Let's see. Here is Anne Crone. I came from a big family. I wonder if there's an issue with feeling like there's not enough. What can I do to let go of that belief? Well, first of all, you'd want to confirm that belief is present in you. Use the pendulum in order to do that. And then you want to find out, what is the origin of that belief that there's not enough? Is that something that occurred when you were 3 years old and you heard your parents arguing over money, trying to choose between paying the mortgage and maybe going to the grocery store? Or was it in a past lifetime where you were maybe a peasant and maybe you had a child that died of malnutrition? It's really important, I think, before you start throwing things at it, to try to figure out exactly where. First of all, if that belief is the one that's operative, there's never enough or there's not enough. And then secondly, where that came from. And once you find out where it came from, you would want to resolve that earlier issue. And that involves working with your earlier or with your younger self. So it could be as simple as if your parents were fighting with each other over whether to pay the mortgage or to go to the grocery store, and you're 3 years old and you're witnessing this, and you take on the belief there's not enough or there's never enough, then as your adult, we would want you to work with your younger self, to work with that 4-year-old, that 3-year-old, what have you, and convince and be able to tell her she doesn't have to worry about this. She's a child. That now you're an adult, and that obviously there was enough, because if there wasn't, you wouldn't be an adult right now. You would have died of malnutrition, and that you're not going to ever leave her alone. That you're always going to be here to provide for her, and that you promise to do that. That kind of approach can be enormously powerful. And reconnecting that 3-year-old with her parents, right? Like this is all in your consciousness. You come as the adult with your 3-year-old in your arms, and your mom and dad are there, and you say, hey, Mom and Dad, I just want you to know, I know you didn't mean to, but when you were arguing over finances, 3-year-old here took on the belief that there wasn't enough, and it has affected her throughout her life. Parents are going to be horrified. They're going to be saying, oh, we're so sorry. Obviously there is enough. It's just stressful being parents. It's okay. You're safe to go back to bed or what have you. I know that this is super complicated, but I think it gives you the idea through this hypothetical example of how we want to resolve things at their root. And then you would want to layer onto that, there's always enough for me. There's always enough for me. Kind of like that example of you're talking to your subconscious mind, and talk to the subconscious mind like it's a little child. It's super literal. And when you go to bed at night, if you use prayers or if you use self-hypnosis or autosuggestion, just keep repeating, there's always enough for me. There's always enough for me. I am abundant. I am full. I am full of life. My tracks that I have on weight loss, a lot of them are going to do these same sorts of things, so you can try working with those tracks as well. For some people, they work miracles. For some people, they have to actually resolve those earlier traumas. Okay, thanks for asking the question. Here is Carmen Fringer. I dealt with my childhood demons till I realized I traded those demons for another, and I can't shake him literally. I think I punished myself for not catching on faster and getting stuck. Okay, Carmen, so this is another example of not wanting to work at cross purposes with yourself, wanting to align yourself, like your subconscious mind is the horse and you're the rider. If that horse doesn't want to go in this direction, it doesn't want to cross that stream, then hitting it, yelling at it, forcing it to do so is probably going to be unsuccessful. It might get you bucked off the horse. It might get you trampled or kicked or something like that. We really want to work together with the subconscious mind. And threats and yelling and so forth are far less effective than understanding and being empathetic and kind. So being kind to yourself, really important. Being empathetic with yourself, not fighting yourself. These are really, really important, because otherwise you've got that house divided against itself and you have this internal conflict set up. Okay. Here is Sarah W. Sarah says, I think we are very focused on our physical selves, but our souls want us to be more aware of why we're on this earthly journey. This can cause us some internal conflict. Certainly if you're avoiding, say, your purpose for this lifetime, if your purpose is to help other people, if your purpose is to use psychic gifts that you have, but you're afraid of using those psychic gifts, then that can set up that internal conflict. And then maybe you want to distract yourself from that conflict, and by distracting yourself, you're either drinking alcohol, or you're taking drugs, or you're, you're overeating. Maybe being super, super heavy in a way keeps you safe because you think, well, as long as I'm super heavy, people won't accept me, or I won't have to be out in front of people. I won't have to be up on the stage because nobody wants to see somebody who's super heavy. Again, these are all examples of unwinding and getting to the root cause. And if the root cause is that you're not following your spiritual path, then clearly we'd have to clear the way for you to feel more comfortable to get on your spiritual path. Now, the other thing I will say is that in any kind of this change work, removing the obstacle, finding the root cause, healing it is the equivalent of what I would call removing the obstacle. That's huge. But you still have to walk this path. And because change means you're going to be doing something different, and something different by definition is uncomfortable. And if it were comfortable, you would have done it a long time. So keep this in mind, that whatever change you make, it's okay that if at first what you're doing is uncomfortable, that is normal. And that over time, if you persist, if you keep doing this new, healthier pattern, it will start to become comfortable because it's becoming familiar to your subconscious mind. It's becoming its own pattern. Okay, but if you've been trying that approach and it's not working, then remember, you just have to change your mind. And you can start with my YouTube tracks on weight loss. That may be enough. If it's not, you're going to have to go after the root cause. All right. Here is Learn to Love Yourself Coaching. Lisa says, thank you, Peter. I asked the pendulum and used your tips before doing multiple past life regressions to set aside my subconscious fears. But it did not work yet, unfortunately. Love your tip, though. Have used it for my clients, and it worked perfectly. So very grateful for that. Okay, so the next thing I would suggest to you is, instead of trying to go directly into a past life regression, and maybe you've tried this, maybe you haven't, but meet with your spirit guide first. So I have a track on my YouTube channel where you meet, and that's called BlueSky Hypnosis, where you meet with your spirit guide first, and then from there, the guide brings you into the past lifetime. That's generally what I do with my clients when I'm working one-on-one with them. And let's just assume that there's a super traumatic past life, and that's why you keep getting blocked. And that trying to set aside the fear is not enough. Subconscious mind isn't having it, saying, no, we're still going to block it. Well, if you meet with your spirit guide first, that may be enough to then move from there into the past lifetime. If it's not, you can then ask your spirit guide, what experience do I need to have before I can successfully visit this particular past lifetime where this problem was created? They may want you to have some other experience, like they may want you to learn about forgiveness before you go into a past lifetime, for example, let's say where you were attacked or abused. So give that one a try and see if that helps. All right. Leah Wiggins, good to see you, Leah. Better late than never is what I always say. Here's Kristen Hubbard. I'm still trying to lose weight, but I keep gaining it back. What do I do? Kristen, give me some more information if you can. How long have you been trying to lose weight? What kinds of things have you tried? How long do you lose weight before? How long do you lose weight before it comes back? When it comes back, does it come back because your behavior changes? Do you all at once in a moment kind of break your diets and start binging? Does it come back without binging? What else is going on there? That would be helpful to know too. All right. Let's see. Here is Suzanne. Suzanne I'm going to butcher this last name. I'm sorry. Susanna Mlakar. Hello from Slovenia. I'm currently struggling to gaining my weight. When I started dating with my boyfriend, now my husband, how do I stop emotional eating? Thank you for your answer. Okay. So the first thing to think about is what is driving those emotions, right? So kind of what I said earlier in this broadcast, I think is applicable for you, is my guess, is that the food and the eating is behaving almost like a drug of some kind. And I just want to put your comment back up here again. when I started dating my boyfriend. Okay, so it sounds like it sounded like this problem began when you started dating your boyfriend who's now your husband. So tell me more about that relationship. Is that relationship volatile? Is it good? Is it abusive? Is it toxic? Is it sometimes really good and sometimes, really bad? Because it sounds like the timing of that is consistent with, according to what you're saying, with when this problem began. So is there something about that relationship that has driven you, to emotional eating? In other words, when you're with your husband, do you feel emotionally insecure? If the answer to that is yes, then that might be what's driving this behavior, this emotional eating. I'm sorry, folks. I'm still trying to get over this bout with COVID, and the only thing that's kind of driving me nuts right now is this tickle in my chest. So I really apologize that I'm coughing every so often. Back to your relationship, Susanna, is that it sounds like something's going on in your relationship with him. So if you're willing to put in some information here and kind of flesh that out a little bit and let me know if something's going on there. Are the two of you fighting a lot? Is he does he criticize you? If you have a fight, is that when you're turning to this? Do you feel lonely even though you're together? It sounds like there's something going on in that relationship if it didn't exist prior to him. And if that's the case, we would want to figure out, what is it? Is your subconscious mind trying to blow up the relationship? In other words, if you get too large, does your subconscious mind think the relationship is going to end? Is there something about weight gain that itself changes the dynamic of the relationship? Is there less intimacy or what have you? But we want to know, to your question, why? What is the emotion that eating the food is trying to quell? What is that feeling it's trying to give you a temporary respite from? All right, so thank you for making the comment, and we'll see if you put in some more comments. I understand if you don't want to, but if you do, I'd appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. Here's Nicole. Good to see you. Sorry for the barking outside too. Carolyn Muat, everything that you're saying makes so much sense. You have given so many great pointers. Will this be available to go back over again? Yeah, absolutely. Every time there's a live, it is captured as a sort of permanent recording on my channel, and you can go back to it and rewatch it. Every so often, I sort of clean that up a little bit. If something doesn't get a lot of views, I just move it out, but it'll be up for a certain period of time for sure. I also want to see if there's anything else here that I haven't talked about. In the last year or so, in the last 2 years, I've been talking a lot with my clients about standing inside of their personal power. So when we're stressed, our autonomic nervous system puts us into a mode that we all have heard of before. It's called fight or flight. And I think in our daily lives, we are faced with these opportunities to either kind of hide and hope the problem goes away, or to take action. And I think it's very human to kind of hide from our problems, to sort of push the problems away and hope that those problems go away. But as we all know, a problem doesn't often just disappear on its own, that we need to take some kind of action in order to deal with it. And taking the action can be really scary, it can be kind of painful. But ultimately, that is what can solve the problem. If we have a hole in our roof, and every time it rains, water's coming in, and it's messing up our carpet, and it's messing up our floors, and we spend our time kind of fussing with the carpet and fussing with the floors because we don't want to get up on a ladder, we don't want to go find the hole, we don't want to do the dirty work to patch that hole, we're going to be dealing with this problem for a long period of time. So again, I come back to this point about discomfort. It's kind of scary to stand out from the crowd. But if you want to experience excellence in your lifetime, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to confront that discomfort. It's really uncomfortable to go to the gym, to lift weights, to go for a long walk every day maybe, or to ride your bike long distances, at least at first. Over time it can become pleasurable, but at first it's kind of difficult. It's easier just to sit on the couch and watch something. It's difficult if you're having problems in a relationship to confront your partner. It's difficult to insist to go into marriage counseling and to bring up all of these painful things, especially painful things from your own past. But it's the difficult work, I think, that ultimately solves the problem, because the other stuff is temporary. It's distracting. It allows you to feel good for a short period of time, but may compound the problem in the long run. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. And Susanna, feel free to flesh out, what you're talking about here. If you want to write some more, I'm happy to go back in and give my thoughts. If not, again, I understand. Okay. Here's Dolores. Sorry you're sick, Peter. I had COVID last year and recovery takes a while. Yeah, I keep hearing that. I keep thinking, no, this should be fast. But I'm hearing the same thing. Here's Heather Marney. Heather says, the reason why I had brought up the codependency is because once I get into the relationship and not take care of myself, because weight is what suffers, because I end up being very unhealthy. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us, again, have a pattern, especially women in our culture, have a pattern of not being really good at receiving, at doing for other people, but not doing for themselves. Because maybe they were taught that doing for themselves is selfish and they don't want to be selfish, or that other people will reject them if they do for themselves. And if you think about it, this is kind of an example of being that tall poppy. That in order to be healthy, it's important to do things for yourself. Sometimes it's important to say no to other people when you know that your bucket is full. And sometimes it's important to be willing to be the bad guy, to say something that other people don't want to hear, and seeing the look of disapproval on their faces, but doing it anyway. That's an example of doing something that's difficult, of taking a path that in the short run causes discomfort, but in the long run produces the kinds of results that you want. That's no different in some respects than going to the gym. The first couple of times you go to the gym, I'd rather be doing something else. It's painful, it's uncomfortable. But over time, that investment pays off dividends much greater than the short term, I'm gonna eat ice cream and watch Netflix right now. All right. Here is NRW Vicar Susan. Says, I've been doing keto for 4 years, no sugar, salt, OMAD, and intermittent fasting. Every time I get injuries, I put on weight. I'm now starting to lose. Doctor prescribed keto due to traumatic brain injury, it looks like. So my question, I guess, for you is, why do you keep getting injured? Is your subconscious trying to punish you? Is it trying to protect you? Does it believe that you're not worthy of a certain kind of life? These are questions I would definitely want to be finding the answers to if you and I were working together one-on-one. Because it sounds like, in a way, that is the pattern that disrupts your ability to lose the weight and achieve it, to sustain that. And that's just from what little you wrote from an outsider standpoint, that's super intriguing. Why do you keep getting injured? What's going on there? I think that's a really important question to answer. And as I said, it could be punishing yourself. It could be that subconsciously you don't believe that you're worthy of a certain kind of lifestyle or the health of your body. It could be that part of your mind thinks that if you're injured, you can't go out and do something else that it thinks is dangerous. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but he is a lawyer, and he's an advocate for children and for the environment and so forth. And he has a speaking issue. It almost sounds when he talks like somebody's got their hand around his throat and they're squeezing. And this is my little 10-cent analysis from the kind of work that I do. And I don't know him personally at all. But his uncle, JFK, President John F. Kennedy, was shot and killed. And his father, Robert F. Kennedy, was shot and killed. And both of those men were public figures. They were speaking out. They were advocating. They were politicians, and they were leaders. And I can't help but believe that somewhere inside of RFK Jr.'s subconscious mind, that there's a part of the mind trying to protect him by keeping his voice clamped shut so he doesn't go out there in the world and say things that end up getting him assassinated. So this thing with your injuries, it could be for a variety of reasons, but excuse me, I think that question really needs to be answered. And thank you for posing it. It's super interesting. All right. Here is Kitten in the Moon. Gosh, I love that name. I find excess weight is like a cloak of invisibility and body armor all in one. I hate being seen. I'm so uncomfortable with attention. Is that a subconscious thing or a past life thing? So, awesome, realization on your part. You've already gotten 3/4 of the way there. So kudos to you. Congratulations. A subconscious thing just means that it's in your deepest programming. The next question is where did that programming come from? And there's really two choices. Excuse me, there's three. I used to say there's two, now I say there's three. Number one, some kind of trauma that happened earlier in your present life. Number two, a trauma that happened in a past lifetime. Number three, a spiritual entity that's attached to you that doesn't want to be seen. These are the three places to investigate. And a tool that I use with my clients to do this that I think is super powerful is the pendulum. That's the next step for you, is to figure out, did it happen in a past lifetime? In other words, the origin of this phenomenon of not wanting to be seen. Did it happen in a previous life, the first time? Did it happen for the first time in your present life, earlier in your present life? Or is there a spiritual entity that doesn't want to be seen, that wants to hide, which kind of by definition they do. Now, when I say these things, I'm not saying that because it happened in a past lifetime that pattern hasn't repeated in your present lifetime. Of course it has, and maybe it was reinforced. But you want to resolve that earlier one. If you have an entity that's attached to you for whatever reason, or multiple entities, you want to move them out. But really, really good observation on your part. We've got about 5 minutes left or so, and I want to take a couple more questions. Before we do, I just want to talk about kind of the schedule for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be taking the next 2 weeks off. This is probably a really good time, given that I'm recovering from this nonsense. And because tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a live 3-hour class. There's still time to register if you want to do this. It's being delivered via Zoom on past life regression. This is going to be, it's designed to be way more interactive. So because it's by Zoom, we'll all be able to see each other. We'll be able to talk to each other, which is super cool. We're going to be doing a live volunteer, a past life regression. We're going to be doing some pendulum work, including a volunteer with the pendulum work, so that you can understand better how this process goes of how you ask these questions to get to the answer that you're looking for. And then the third part that's interactive is going to be a group past life regression. It's going to be a lot for 3 hours. I'm not sure if we can get it all in, and I want to be able to take the questions as they come up. So it's going to be this sort of dynamic flowing thing. If you're interested in registering for it, as I say, there's still time to do that. And I'm just looking for my, where is it? Past life there. That in this video, there's a link that'll take you to a page that will give more description about the event, and it'll give you the Zoom link for tomorrow. Anyway, I'm going to be taking the next 2 weeks off of the live. We're going to be returning back here Friday Live at 5 on Friday, February 25th, I believe it is. And so stay tuned for information on that one. Take a couple more questions. Here is Kelly. Kelly says, "Hi, Peter. I'm trying to lose weight for years after several surgeries with issues. Kids and health struggles. I'm stuck. Can it be a past life blockage?" It could be. It could be. And yeah, the issues, those issues that you mentioned are intriguing. So what are those issues? That's what I would want to know. And then the next question would be, are those issues directly, related to the inability to lose weight? The surgeries themselves can be traumatic. So if you said to me, everything was fine until I had this first surgery, and since then I haven't been able to get back to the weight that occurred beforehand, we'd, number one, want to rule out, okay, is there a physiological reason for this? Are you on any kinds of drugs or medication that could explain this? And or was there something about the surgery itself that the subconscious mind took on as a trauma in and of itself? So when there is surgery, even if you're under general anesthesia, your subconscious mind doesn't go to sleep. And when the knife cuts into the skin, to the subconscious mind, that's really no different than a mugger's knife going into the skin. In other words, everything tenses up, even though the person's under general anesthesia, and can take the whole experience as a kind of assault. So that's another thing to consider as well. I would refer you back to using the pendulum, probing around in the pendulum to get the answer that you're looking for as to the origin point of all of this. You know, what is the block that's preventing you from taking off this weight? All right. So Susan says, thank you. You are very welcome. Dolores L. says, if you have the time, and since I am new to this, could you please explain a pendulum? Yes, absolutely. I'll explain this quickly. A pendulum is a tool known as an ideomotor tool. And really what it's doing is it's giving you the answer to yes-no questions of what is occurring in your subconscious mind. So while you're holding this pendulum, you could ask a question like, did I live is a trauma in a past lifetime the origin of my problem with overeating? Now, consciously, you might not even believe in past lifetimes, but holding the pendulum, you could get a yes to that question. That's pretty interesting. So it's a formal mechanism for getting to that part of you that you might call your intuition, or you might call your gut feeling or your gut knowing. Right? We all say these things like, well, what does your gut tell you? And sleep on it. And what does your intuition tell you? But it's hard for most people to sort of codify that and understand exactly what's going on there. Well, an ideomotor tool, like a pendulum, can help you to get to those yes-no answers of what's happening in your subconscious mind. And on my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, subscribe if you haven't, there's a video that teaches you how to use a pendulum. So if you go to the channel and you just type in pendulum, you can watch this short video and then you'll be up and running in terms of using a pendulum. And what I was talking about with tomorrow's past life regression class is we're going to spend some time in learning more about the questioning process, how to actually get deeper into those questions to get the answers that you're looking for. So hopefully that made sense to you. All right, let's take one more here, maybe. Here is Kitten in the Moon. Kitten in the Moon says, thanks, Peter. I have a lovely pendulum. I can get on that. Wish I could offer you some tea and Manuka honey and fix that cough. I'm going to do that right after we end this broadcast in one moment. So thank you for the suggestion. I need to take better care of myself, I think. Thank you all for participating today. For those of you who are going to be joining tomorrow for the past life regression class on Zoom, I will see you tomorrow starting at 1 Eastern. For those of you who want to register for that, there's still time. The link is in the description of today's video. And for everyone else, I hope I see you in the next 3 weeks from now on the 25th, where we'll be tackling a whole new topic, more information to come on that. Have a great weekend. Thanks for your participation, and we'll see you down the road.